When I approached Harvey about doing this, he said, I don't want to set up another organization. I don't want to be involved in that because who's going to run it?
It all starts with a moment when you look around and realize there's a space to fill, and it's up to you to fill that space. But do you have what it takes? Do you have the right ingredients for the job? Well, look no further than your own history, and you'll find that the ingredients of your success are written in your story.
I came into the arts as a child of the 70s. And wanting to impact my community. And I thought I was going to impact my community through education. My undergraduate degree is in early childhood education, so I thought I was going to open a preschool. But then I found my way to the arts and realized that it was a tool that could be used for changing community and empowering community. And have always been committed to Black people. I mean, I'm like Issa Rae say, I'm about everybody Black.
I mean, I had been the managing director at a theater company before, and so I understood what was involved. But I was still fairly new to Brooklyn and to the local and regional cultural landscape. I knew not only that I had a lot to learn, I had a lot of relationships to build, but I also had extremely big shoes to fill. And I did not take that lightly at all.
Sometimes those big shoes come from change makers like Mikki Shepherd, founder of 651 Arts, whose own journey would bring her to this moment that would change her life and the Brooklyn arts scene forever.
I come from the civil rights movement. I come from social movements. I come from, gay rights, women's rights, workers' rights, civil rights, black arts movement. That's what I come from. So my whole way of working and the way that I think and the way I approach things comes from being an arts activist. Because I ran the program at BAM that really supported Black artists and artists of color, I had suggested a separate not-for-profit be formed that could actually take on that piece of work. And so the city and the borough president's office they were all for it. And so I went to BAM and suggested it to Harvey at Liechtenstein.
651 Arts was born. But wait, a whole new organization? Why build something new, especially when you're under the nose of the Brooklyn Academy of Music? What was it that Black people needed from the arts?
What I felt was kind of missing from the mix was more contemporary work and work that was really from the African diaspora. Because my background is more in dance, and Leonard Goins, who is an ethnomusicologist and a jazz musician, he's more in music. And from a very practical point of view, it was less expensive to present music and dance. We decided to focus on music and dance coming from the African diaspora. But a big focus for us was also on the art form, jazz, for example, contemporary dance, people, artists who had not been recognized, but also emerging artists, and established artists and emerging artists, but also mid-career artists who needed support, and place, because place was very important. Place meaning, one program that we developed was called the Lost Jazz Shrines, and it was about these jazz shrines, and actually it was a national program that we developed. So we had partners, I think we had 9 other presenting organizations around the country who focused on those jazz shrines that existed in their communities and were supported by their communities for a very long period of time that didn't exist anymore. So it's about place, that these things did exist. But because unfortunately, we haven't documented a lot, and so it's really, which is one of the reasons that 651 did a lot of documentation in terms of program booklets and essays, because we felt like people didn't know about what existed in our communities.
Getting the art and the artists is one thing. Getting people to come out and see that art is a whole other matter. You've got to build strong, lasting relationships with the community. But when you know your community, you know how to talk to them.
So for us, place was important. So it was the art form, the artist, and place, and contemporary work. And some of it was also popular music in particular, and that was more a earned revenue strategy, quite frankly, because I negotiated with Harvey to use the Opera House, which was 2,100 seats, so I can do blue lights in the basement. That was a big thing in Brooklyn, blue lights in the basement. So I wanted to recreate that, but recreate it in the Opera House where I could make money in order to pay for the things that I wasn't making money on, right? So, and of course in the early days, we didn't have a lot of funding, so I needed to generate earned revenue. So it was a real broad mix of things. But again, reflecting what I knew about the cultural programs that existed in Brooklyn, and also what was not there, and then how to best serve people that were there.
You know, it was the beginning of social media. So we leaned very heavily on social media because we didn't have a robust marketing budget. You know, we didn't have a budget to purchase ads. And then another thing we did is we started introducing the artists early on in the season, as opposed to you learning about the artist at a talk back at the end of a show. We started the artist engagement process early in the season, introducing them, giving you some idea of the artist's process. We started a series called 651, 6 questions in 5 minutes with one artist.
I was always interested in walking side by side with our audiences and other community members, rather than leaving them in the dust and saying, come on and catch up with us, because this is the thing to which you should be paying attention. And so having enough authenticity in that set of relationships to have honest dialogue is really at the root of doing it well. And that's what we always worked for at 651.
The goals didn't really come into shape until a little later in my career, but what they are is about access to existing organizations, because at the time we didn't have a lot of our own organizations. So why couldn't our artists perform at the BAMs, at the Lincoln Centers, but also building our own? So that, and the other one was about community access, and the third one was about supporting the next generation of artists and administrators. That for me was what my life's work has been about. So if I'm really true to that, when somebody says to me, you gotta run it, then I gotta run it.
The foundation was laid. 651 Arts was alive. But don't celebrate too soon. The real work has just begun. You're going to need a strong structure to face all of the trials and challenges. But as the saying goes, if you want something done right, ask a Black woman.
We are willing to really lay it all on the line, to make it happen in the way that we believe our community deserves. And that is not to diminish Black men, because they too have been devoted to community. But there's a special role, I think, that Black women can and have and will continue to play. It's sort of in parallel to, we've been around here saving democracy too. Let the Black women do it. They got it.